You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
Incoming transmission.
To the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the new millennial conservative resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you. You are listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network and also on KLRNradio.com. KLRNradio.com are wonderful, veritable syndicators. We thank them for that. Yeah, that kind of fell off there. Gotta work on that intro, man. But hey, we have got one hell of a show today, and we have an absolute ton to get through. Why? Because again, it has reared its ugly head. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact has struck again. Oh man, I can't believe we gotta go back to this crap. I've been reporting about this since 2016. That's 3 years now. I've been reporting about the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact and why it is a catastrophically bad idea. So we're going to dive into that. That's probably gonna be like the entire second half of the show. I have got like more URLs than you can shake a stick at, so you guys can get a nice, full, well-rounded view of this, absolute crap show. But before we before we touch on any of that type of far-reaching, country-breaking type of stuff, first we need to talk about CPAC. CPAC. Because once again, I couldn't go! Yeah. Yeah, well, that happens. I live in Arizona, CPAC's in Washington, D.C., and I have a job. Yeah. Ooh. Next year, right? Next year. We're going to start saving now. I'm going to throw it up onto the Subscribe Star and to the Patreon. Send the HoloNet to CPAC. And, maybe we'll pull it off this year. Maybe. Supporters like you can send me to CPAC to go shake hands with Ted Cruz and interview people like Sam Sorbo is over on the Mojo 50 right now. Oh, such jealousy and rage. But anyway, CPAC. President Donald Trump, the Trumpster himself, the Don. President Trump gave a whopping 2-hour and 22-minute speech, the longest speech on record at CPAC 2019. I have yet to listen to the entire thing in its entirety. I've caught some pieces of it. I've read transcript, But what I want to point out here, I'm not going to point to any specific items that he said, although I'm going to point you to a couple stories that do. What I want to point out to you is the two abjectly opposite realities that we currently inhabit as a nation. And we're going to go picture in picture for this real fast. So anybody watching on Facebook, YouTube, TuneIn, iTunes, you're not well. If you're not watching on Facebook, YouTube, or BitChute, you're not going to be able to see this. So log on to thehollonet.com. You can find it there. HoloNet on YouTube, HoloNet on BitChute as well, and Facebook.com/HoloNet to see this. So we're going to, and I'm going to need to shower after this, we're going to Vox. Vox reports, Amanda Sakuma says, the 7 most bizarre moments from Trump's long-winded CPAC rant. By Amanda Sakuma, again, that's March 2nd. The off-script expletive-dropping Donald that we first met on the campaign trail in 2015 is back in front of the cameras. Trump took to the stage at the Conservative Political Action Committee conference this weekend for a long-winded and very quotable rant against the many perceived villains weighing down his presidency, namely the media, federal investigators, and socialist challengers. I can't believe she actually put socialist in quotations, despite the fact that Bernie Sanders is an repeatedly avowed socialist. And Kamala Harris has also come out in support of socialist policies. So, why the quotes? Anyway, socialist challengers in 2020. He started off the event by bear-hugging a staff with the American flag. Look at that wonderful photo. Look at that. Oh, that's a picture moment right there. That's a Kodak moment, what they used to call that when I was a kid. Anyway... Reportedly, he set the tone for the rest of his appearance, reportedly the longest speech of his presidency. First public address since his trip to Vietnam, that ended abruptly without a deal. Hey, we need to talk about that deal real quick. This is not on the show sheet, so Matt's going off book. Okay, so this Vietnam debacle, okay? Couple of things. One, walking away from the table when the deal that is in front of you is only good for the other person when it's a deal is not bad diplomacy. It is good diplomacy. It is extremely good diplomacy. It is Reykjavik level stuff, okay? Reykjavik was one of the defining moments of the Reagan presidency when he got up from the table and stunned the world when he walked out on Mikhail Gorbachev and basically told him, or was it Nikita Khrushchev? I'm pretty sure it was Nikita Khrushchev. When he got up and walked out and told the Soviet Union to kick rocks, okay? The world was stunned. They thought we were about to have World War III because he basically flipped the table and walked out of the room. President Trump probably did so a bit more cordially in this case, but he walked away from the table when a bad deal was on it. I am not going to criticize the man for walking away from a bad deal. What I am going to criticize the man for is that Otto Warmbier stuff, man. Oh, God. That's like stepping in crap and then putting your foot in your mouth. So now you are sucking on your own crap heel. I mean, he couldn't have screwed this up any worse than he already did. And it's really a bit disappointing. It's like, okay, walked away from the table. Good move. Talked about Otto Warmbier and how he doesn't blame Kim. Oh, God, shut up. No. Go, get out of the mic. Go. Somebody, pull him away. I mean, this isn't like the days of President Bush where you could really tell when he went off prompter. There's no warning with President Trump because he doesn't seem to ever be on prompter. So I have to imagine what his handlers feel like. But man, talk about a gaffe. That's a facepalm groaner moment where you're just going, oh, Donnie, you were doing so well. Shut up. Get on the plane. Jesus. So, I have said it before, I'll say it again. You know, I got my MAGA hat, wrong hand. I got my MAGA hat hanging up right over here. I have really turned the corner on President Trump. And I actually, I was going out for some freelance writing opportunities, so I had to get onto a webpage called clearvoice.com, hashtag not a sponsor. Clearvoice is a website for freelance writers, so if you're looking to hire some freelancers, check that out. Link in the description. But I had to assemble for them a catalog of all my written work, and I was really kind of shocked a little bit to find out I am apparently a prolific SOB, not just for the fact that I have 4 children. I apparently have written 55 some articles in the past 3 years, which is a bit more than I thought I had. So I was kind of impressed, but I was reading through them, right? And one of my earlier Blaze articles were like 14 fictional presidents who are a better choice than Trump or Hillary, because I was not never Trump, but I was very hesitant Trump at the beginning back in 2016. I was not in the Trump camp. I was not on the Trump train. I backed Ted Cruz. I think I pretty much stayed backing Ted Cruz for the whole time. I think I looked at Michelle Bachmann for a good long minute, but I wasn't really dead set there. But I was very hesitant to back President Trump because of crap like this Otto Warmbier, where he goes off script, he goes off message, and he just stands in his mouth. He shoves his foot in his mouth so far you can actually hear him gag on a shoelace. And that was my concern, is he screws up. He's human. He is not this neatly pressed, tight politician. He shoots from the hip, man. You're getting all Trump all the time. You're getting him as him. Trump is Trump. You need to let Trump be Trump, I believe one author had said. And I was worried about that. And this is why this Otto Warmbier stuff is a problem. You know, Trump first suggested North Korea wasn't responsible for Otto Warmbier's death. Now he's walking it back. Of course he's walking it back. It was a terrible thing to say. Everybody in the White House staff must have just gone, oh, crap, when he let that one fly. But I digress. So, let's... I kind of went way off topic. But hey, that's the cool thing about having my own show. I can do that. But anyway, I was pointing out that in my CV, the curricula vitae, you know, the listing of all my publications, you can actually watch me turn the corner over the course of the last 3 years. Where I'm like, I'm not so hot on President Trump. I don't want to, get in Trump right then. I'm like, okay, well, he's the nominee, and we're going to back the nominee, and then, okay, he's actually doing a pretty good job, and hey, this guy's not bad, and would he please shut up? And if you go back and listen to the shows, you can watch it and listen to it happen. Until you get to today, where I am pretty much coming right out and saying, yeah, Trump 2020, dude. Trump 2020. We don't really have a better bet right now, because this president really does make moves and make actions commensurate to his promises. He actually is trying to get to his promises. He has not achieved anything, but it's more than we've seen from any Republican president in my lifetime. So that needed to be said. So I mentioned earlier, before I went off on a way long tangent, holy hell, I'm coming up on a break, that we are living in 2 completely opposite realities. Because you take a look at this Vox article, if you can stomach it, the 7 most bizarre moments from Trump's long-winded CPAC rant. And then you go over to Breitbart. Donald Trump thrills CPAC crowd with record-long speech lasting over 2 hours. And, the president with his fist raised in triumph. I wonder if anybody's going to call him out on that being a black power symbol. But anyway, you listen to Breitbart's coverage. This speech was certainly the longest CPAC speech ever given by a president of the United States, and the longest speech ever at CPAC. It is also described as the longest speech of his presidency. Trump stopped to hug the American flag after he took the stage at 12:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to his favorite American anthem, "Proud to be an American," by Lee Greenwood. He began his speech by recalling his first big political speech at CPAC in 2011. I enjoyed it so much I came back for a second time, then a third, and then I said, what the hell, let's run for president, Trump said. The president had a prepared speech and teleprompters set up, but soon abandoned them to discuss what was on his mind. Remember what I told you about teleprompters before? You know, I'm totally off script right now, and this, is how I got elected, by being off script, he said. And if we don't go off script, our country is in big trouble, folks. Trump spoke at length about his presidency, telling stories about his experience in the White House during the government shutdown, his trip to Iraq to meet the troops. He ripped the ongoing investigation by congressional Democrats, the FBI, and Special Counsel Robert Mueller. So you just hear and you see such different, diametrically opposed types of coverage here. You see glowing praise of the president coming from Breitbart, and scathing rebuke coming from Vox. And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I was a little taken aback and maybe a little disquieted by just how many expletive drops the president had during his CPAC speech. He seemed to forget that he's no longer a candidate on the stump, but is actually the sitting president of the United States. And it's not very common, historically speaking, nor is it considered in the best taste or international political norms for the president to drop censorable bombs, especially in a large speech that is well televised, that is going to be extremely well circulated. I mean, it used to be back in the day that if the president stubbed his toe and said, "Damn it," while he was, out for a jog, that would be on the 5 o'clock news. But now the president is dropping repeated expletives during a 2-hour-long CPAC speech. I don't know. It comes down to what I said before. You got to let Trump be Trump. But at the same time, Mr. President, you're the president now. Come on, dude. Reel it in. Just a little. Just reel it in. I know that people like how real he is. But I just don't know if I can get behind, president having a mouth of a sailor on shore leave, while he's representing my country to the rest of the world. So that's the criticism I'll give to President Trump here. The great praise that I'll give to President Trump was in a very, very unexpected vow that he gave us. This is off of Reason, their hit and run blog, that he promised CPAC 2019 attendees that he would soon sign an executive order to force universities and colleges to do a better job protecting the free speech rights of students. Now, if you, like me, are a supporter of Steven Crowder and the Louder with Crowder team, you may have seen their Change My Mind segments at UT Austin. If you also like Ben Shapiro, or if you keep up with conservative news at all, you would know well of the UC Berkeley debacle that happened when Ben Shapiro attempted to speak there. And if you listen to the HoloNet podcast here, you would know that Grand Canyon University very nearly did not allow Ben Shapiro to speak here in Arizona, despite them being one of the larger Christian, conservative, privately owned universities. That's something. So this is definitely an issue that has called out for a high-level response and that Congress has remained completely mute upon. And I laud and applaud the President of the United States for standing in the gap on this one. He said, "Today I am proud to announce that I will be very soon signing an executive order requiring colleges and universities to support free speech if they want federal research dollars." The White House declined to answer the New York Times questions about the matter, but an official with knowledge of the executive order confirmed to Reason that a draft exists. Indeed, the plan is to penalize universities that do not protect free speech by taking away their federal grants. Thank you, Mr. President. Excellent. Outstanding. To justify the executive order, Trump referenced an incident involving Hayden Williams, a young conservative activist who was punched in the face at the University of California, Berkeley, while helping recruitment for the conservative advocacy group Turning Point USA. The police arrested a suspect on Friday. Neither Williams nor his presumed assailant are Berkeley students. This was widely covered by groups like The Blaze and also the New York Times. Dude got punched in the face just for standing on a college campus wearing a MAGA hat. Come on! Whether free speech is currently in crisis on college campuses is a hotly debated issue. No, it's not. No, it's not. There are people with fact on their side, and there are people who are defending the how should I put this gently? They're defending the SJW brass in these colleges. They're defending the built-in, baked-in socialist, liberal, progressive bias in these universities that are protected by nothing more than tenure and cowards. Tenure and cowards. Okay? When you have professors who are calling for people to be doxxed and attacked. When you have professors who are calling for the slaughter of law enforcement officials, as featured on The Blaze earlier this week. One California professor was outwardly calling for all police officers to die. I think there's a limitation to what tenure should protect. I digress. To the extent that there is a college free speech problem, most of it is cultural. As I explain in my forthcoming book, Panic Attack Young Radicals at the Age of Trump. Pre-order here. Okay. Robbie, nice. You're supposed to put that after the article, bro. After, in the footnotes. It's called link in the description. Anyway. There are some far-left activist students who view speech that they disagree with as a form of violence, and they insist on shutting down controversial speakers on self-defense grounds. It is this tiny liberal minority making life difficult. I'm sorry, they might be a tiny liberal minority, but they are supported by the bureaucratic majority in those colleges. When they threaten violence against conservative speakers, they force university administrations to spend more money on security, costs that are sometimes passed along to other students. No, here's what you do. You take those people and you throw their asses out. Allow me to be completely clear on that. Expel them. You're going to threaten violence on a campus in response to someone else speaking that's making terroristic threats, which is a crime, that is inciting violence, which is a crime. Throw their ass out. I don't know if I could be any clearer than that. Speech, which is not inciting to violence, directly calling for violence. Ben Shapiro doesn't do that. Steven Crowder doesn't do that. Conservative speakers at large don't do that. Don't have a tendency to. There have been some, yes, but I'm talking about by and large, they don't do that. Speech that does not incite violence is not violence itself. Hell, speech that incites violence is not violence in and unto itself. It merely leads to violence. We have to remember this. We have to remember freedom of speech is sacrosanct and absolute. Whew, wow. I'm on a long run today. Ran a little long into that topic there. But yes, very happy with the president's actions at CPAC by and large. Keep the language down, but definitely push ahead on free speech. I realize how hypocritical that sounds, but you have to realize one is a man representing an entire nation, and calling for a little decorum on his part is not inhibiting his free speech. However, threatening violence on conservative speakers on college campuses is. So, on that note, we're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into some news coming to us from across the pond, and we're going to very briefly touch on H.R. 8, which is the House of Representatives bill calling for comprehensive background checks, in addition to those already in place, on all types of firearm transfer. This is the next step in the abrogation of the Second Amendment. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network and KLRNradio.com. We'll be right back.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's right. You are listening to New Conservative Resistance, and it begins right here, right now, with you. This is the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network and KLRNradio.com. Thank you for sticking with us. We are, 27 minutes in. I kind of borked that segment a little bit. I ran way too long. So, yeah, I'm going to have to drop the identifiers here, probably in like 2 minutes. But just stick with me for this. We're going across the pond to look at a couple of stories. One from, actually both of these are coming from Breitbart, but one regarding the UK and Brexit, the other regarding a stunning admission coming from German police officials. But first, before we do that, we're going to be looking at H.R. 8. Right here, CNN Politics. House sends gun background check bill to the Senate with bipartisan support. Bipartisan support. Now, when you hear bipartisan support, you think like, wow, man, the Democrats and the Republicans, they actually got together. They agreed on something. No, they got like 8 Republicans who are moderate Republicans, who are blue dog Republicans. They got them to cross. These are not conservative Republicans. House Representatives on Wednesday passed significant gun control legislation for the first time in more than 2 decades, a move that Democrats hope will intensify a pressure campaign for a vote in the Senate. The Universal Background Check Bill, H.R. 8, requires background checks on all firearm sales in the country. All of them. My father-in-law sells me a gun. We have to go to a gun store and get a background check. Now, as touched on by Glenn Beck earlier this week, and something to look into, given the fact that banks are yanking support away from gun dealers, saying that we're not going to process transactions for them, that's going to make it a little hard to transfer your firearms then, isn't it? So, currently, only licensed gun dealers must perform background checks for anyone seeking to purchase a firearm. Most unlicensed sellers do not. H.R. 8 would make that illegal. There are exemptions to the law, like gifts to family members and transfers for hunting, target shooting, and self-defense, according to the House Judiciary Committee website. Well, what if they don't want to gift it to me? What if they want to sell it to me? I mean, that's an expensive gift. That makes no sense. The measure passed 240 to 190. 8 Republicans voted for the bill, and 2 Democrats, Jared Golden of Maine and Colin Peterson of Minnesota, voted against it. Good for them. Nice to see some Dems with a set. The bill will move to the Senate, where it is unlikely to pass in the Republican majority chamber, as legislation often needs 60 or more votes to advance. Unlikely? More like snowball's chance in hell. But this does point out a really critical issue. And we've been saying it. If the Democrats control the House and the Senate and the presidency, they are coming for the guns. They are absolutely coming for the guns. Quick break, studio IDs, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to New Conservative Resistance, the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network and KLRNradio.com. If you want to follow us online, we are at www.theholonet.com, theholonet.lanterns.buzz, KLRNradio.com, and also on Facebook.com/HoloNet, Twitter at the HoloNet, BitChute, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, all great places where wonderful podcasts are found. In UK news, Delingpole says there will never be Brexit while Theresa May is Prime Minister. We go to a story by James Delingpole. He says, to save Brexit, Theresa May must resign as Prime Minister. To save the Conservative Party, Theresa May must resign as Prime Minister. To save Britain, Theresa May must resign as Prime Minister. Everyone understands this, Jason writes. It's the simple solution to all our problems, but there's just one wrinkle in the ointment. Can you guess what it is? Theresa May does not want to resign as Prime Minister. But really, at this stage, it's our only hope. Over the next few days, Britain is in danger of signing what future historians will surely recognize as the worst deal in history. The deal, as was always the attention of the European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, is so bad that most people who voted leave will wish they had never bothered because, amazingly, it will leave Britain worse off than if it had remained a member of the EU. This is the Chequers Agreement, as we've previously discussed. That's certainly the view of Daniel Hannan, a member of the European Parliament, co-founder of the European Research Group and one of the architects of Brexit. In a must-read column in the Sunday Telegraph, Hannan argues that Brexit voters are being sold a pup and are being treated like idiots by the Remain establishment. He says, we keep being told that unreasonable Eurosceptics are their own worst enemies, and that if Brexit is now thwarted, it will somehow be their fault. But it is hard to think of a more unreasonable proposition than that all that matters is coming back with something that can technically be termed a Brexit. Even after 30 months, leavers are still being subtly patronized. It is assumed that the dim-witted oafs cannot possibly have weighed the costs and benefits before voting, and that all that the government needs to do now is show them something that has Brexit written on it in bright, shiny letters. In fact, Leave voters understand that some forms of Brexit are better than others. They understand, too, that some things are so bad that they could be worse than either staying or leaving. The EU, of course, has understood this from the start. As Michel Barnier put it in 2016, I'll have done my job if in the end the exit terms are so bad that the British would rather stay in the EU. Such an attitude on the part of Brussels was to be expected. The readiness of our negotiators to go along with it was not. So, Delingpole from Breitbart London, calling for the resignation of Theresa May, that it is the only hope for a positive Brexit for England now. As with the upcoming vote in the next few days, the situation continues to deteriorate in London, where we seem to be freewheeling toward either a delay in Brexit or an extraordinarily disadvantageous Brexit for Britain. And while we are all wrapped up and sucked up into our own national squabbles here in the United States, things are going to hell across the pond. Brexit woes, and now Germany. According to German police, in a stunning admittance, North African migrants are more prone to criminality. According to German Federal Criminal Police Office, they've admitted North African migrants are more prone to criminality, and they have called for police to focus their attention to prevent them from forming organized mafias. That's right, we're basically talking about racial profiling in Germany. Gee, that can never possibly go wrong. BKA President Holger Munch said that police needed to tackle issues of North African migrant crime before criminal structures can emerge, as has been the case with the Arab clan mafia groups Die Welt, meaning the world in German, reports. Earlier this week, Munch noted that the European Police Congress in Berlin that organized criminal clans can only be stopped with an enormous effort on the part of the police. Problems that have arisen in 25 to 30 years, which we will not solve in 25 to 30 days, he said. He added several regions across the country, Bremen, Berlin, Lower Saxony, and North Rhine-Westphalia, had particular problems with organized criminal groups. BKA reports from 2017 revealed that migrants were responsible for at least 9% of serious crimes. Their overrepresentation in violent crimes and sexual offenses was even starker, with the number rising to over 10%, and migrants from Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, and Algeria being particularly prevalent among these suspects. It's funny, isn't it? People like Lauren Southern and Brittany Pettibone and Sargon of Akkad, they don't sound so crazy now, do they? Now you have the German National Police coming out and saying, yes, there is higher levels of criminality amongst the migrant population and we need to do something about it. Huzzah for the Berlin police. Good job. You caught up. You've been denying it for what, 5-6 years now? And calling anybody who dares disagree with you a racist and a bigot? But now the stink of the crap you've been shoveling is so sick and so deeply ingrained that you have to admit that it's there? Bloody well took you long enough. Organized migrant gangs such as notorious Arab clans operating in cities like Berlin have become a major problem for police. In 2017, it was claimed that Arab clans were even recruiting newly arrived asylum seekers to aid in their criminal enterprises, with members visiting asylum homes in the German capital. The young refugees have no one here to stop them, Benjamin Gendro of the Berlin Police Union said. They see peers who are driving an Audi Q8 and hear how easy it is to get there, and they want that too. You cannot blame them. So, glad you caught on. Hope it's not too late. I hope the situation hasn't reached critical mass where just the abject criminality of this population in Europe has now reached endemic proportions and can no longer be combated, like in areas of France. Well, I digress. And now we must look back to our own shores. Looking back to the United States. Oh, we got trouble. Right here in River City. With a capital T and that rhymes with the P and that stands for pool. Wonder if I'm going to get copyright nailed for that. Wouldn't that be funny? That would be funny. If just for singing a few bars of trouble. Goodness. Okay. First thing we need to address, and I've addressed it before, again, links in description, 2 stories that I wrote in 2016 for The Blaze. State legislatures could render 22 states silent in election, and you don't vote for president. You weren't meant to either. Touched on this topic. It is the Electoral College. And ladies and gentlemen, we must save the Electoral College. We must save it from being disbanded. It has become a common trope on the left to call for the abolition of the Electoral College and for a direct national popular vote, and there cannot be any understatement to how catastrophic that would be. I outlined this story in the Dominion of the Coasts, another story that's located on theholonet.com. Link will be in the description. You can check that out as well, about the political changes that have rocked our country. Here it is on lanterns.buzz. Dominions of the Coast, the future of conservative America. The mobility of the American population and the divide between the coasts and the cities and the heartland and the country. It's right there for the world to see. There are 3 ways we can move forward. First, and I think one of the best, is maintain status quo antebellum. before the upcoming civil war that I hope never comes. We keep the Electoral College the way it is. The way our founding fathers envisioned it, controlled by the state houses, to do so as they will. The way the Electoral College is run right now, sorry, commercials on lanterns, is that each individual state decides how their electoral votes will be apportioned. That's the way it is set out in the Constitution of the United States. And the vast majority of states have a winner-take-all or first-past-the-post provision, where, based on one party or another getting a majority, not a plurality, but typically a majority of the state's popular votes, so 51% of your state votes Republican, all, in Arizona's case, 11 of your Electoral College votes turn red, go to the Republican candidate, right? The other option, which I believe exists in Minnesota and one other state, I think, let me see, proportional Electoral College states. Nebraska and Maine. They do not follow the winner-take-all rules. In these states, there can be a split of the electoral votes among the candidates for a state system for the proportional electoral votes. For example, Maine has 4 electoral votes in 2 congressional districts. So there can be a split in Nebraska and Maine. And that is the second option, which I think could potentially benefit the United States, is a proportional split. And that's what I'd like to explore with you a little more in depth today. Now, we've explored the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact before. We're going to review that real fast just so everybody is on board. Going to that story, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact strikes at the very heart of our Federalist Republic I wrote for the Blaze just over 2 years ago. Strikes at the heart of our Federalist Republic. While the compact does not completely eliminate the Electoral College, it completely obliterates the balance between our most and least populous states. Such a measure inches us a little closer to the simple democracy which is de facto mob rule. Furthermore, this interstate compact will surely face astonishing judicial scrutiny for its clear intent to circumvent the United States Constitution. I also wrote, here we go. The Electoral College is critical to our nation's freedom. It stands between the republic our founders envisioned and a simple tyranny of the majority. The conservative and truly liberal voters of America and the Electoral College prevented the United States from becoming the dominion of the coasts and prevented the heartland from suffering firmly in progressive subjugation for another 8 years. Be watchful, be vigilant, be uniters, not dividers. So along those lines, I would like to suggest that we begin exploring alternative options to keeping the status quo Electoral College, and why not expand the conversation to include proportional representation. I still believe the best solution is that which exists today, is the Electoral College as it was established by our founders. But if there must be a reform, proportional representation, I believe, would be more beneficial, less harmful, than the national popular vote. The Denver Post wrote, the winner-take-all electoral college system used by 48 states, including Colorado, sees court challenges. This is back March 26th in 2018. Here we go. When Donald Trump won more than 52% of the Texas vote during the 2016 election, he pocketed all 38 of the state's electoral college votes, just as Hillary Clinton, who won California with 61%, swept all 55 of that state's electors. It's a winner-take-all system used by 48 states that critics hope to have ultimately ruled unconstitutional. Advocates took their first step last month by filing federal lawsuits in 4 states. Let's see here. Massachusetts, Texas, California, and South Carolina, arguing that the practice of assigning all of a state's electoral college votes to a popular winner, no matter just how narrow, runs counter to the principle of one person, one vote by disenfranchising those who voted for the losing candidate. The group behind the initiative, the League of United Latin American Citizens, said the practice also violates the constitutional rights of free association, political expression, and equal protection under the law. So what are the pros and cons? We've got a lot of stories here to go through it. We have Oxpoll, the U.S. needs a proportional electoral college. I'll keep the link down in the description of this, but this gives a mathematical breakdown of the changes of each and how feasible it is. Then we have a fair vote, talking about how it works in Maine and Nebraska. Then we have the Washington Post. This is actually a really good piece by Washington Post. I'm not going to say that very much. Here's what would have been under other setups. Okay, so the current system, which they roundly criticize, because it's the Washington Post, of course they do, they hate losing, shows us George W. Bush won 2,000, 271 to 266. George W. Bush won oh, come on. What's with the scrolling thing? Okay. 286 to 252 against John Kerry in 2004. Barack Obama beat McCain 365 to 173 in 2008. He beat Mitt Romney in 2012, 332 to 206. And Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton 304 to 227. Okay? So, now we go to popular vote and how that would have looked. In 2000, Gore would have beat Bush. In 2004, Bush would have beat Kerry. In 2008, Obama would beat McCain again, and Obama would beat Romney again in 2012. And in 2016, Hillary Clinton would have beaten Donald Trump. Notice something? That is one Republican victory, and that's a farce right there, because Bush wouldn't have been the incumbent, and Kerry would not have been the Democrat running. It would have been Al Gore running again. So this is a wash. So honestly, I believe we would have seen Democratic victories in the last 5 presidential elections. That's what the national popular vote does for you. Now, if we look at a proportional system, in a proportional system, the 2000 election would have still gone to George Bush, but neither of them would have gotten the 50% needed, so it would have gone to the House of Representatives. Okay? In 2004, still would have gone to George Bush. 2008 would have gone to Barack Obama. 2012 would have still gone to Barack Obama. So not a major change here. 2016, no candidate would have made the minimum 270, so it would have gone to the House, where the House would then vote for president. So this, I think, is the middle ground. I think this is the compromise between the two concepts, and I think it needs to be inserted into the conversation, because right now the only two things we're hearing about are national popular vote and the existing electoral college. I'm in favor of the existing electoral college, but this is a middle ground system that nobody seems to want to think about. Why? Because this is a middle ground system that actually gives the third parties relevance. Now, the other concepts that are there are parliamentary and contingent. The parliamentary system would have given Bush the election both times in 2000 and 2004. In 2008, it would have given Obama the election. In 2012, it would have given Romney the election. And in 2016, it would have given Donald Trump the election, because a parliamentary method requires you to control both houses. Thank God we don't live in the UK. That would be a new government every 2 years. Contingent election is a little bit different. Currently, if electors are deadlocked, the presidential election goes to the House of Representatives, and the House has picked 3 presidents in our history. The twist on this indirect form of election is that each representative does not get a vote. Instead, each state delegation has to agree on a vote. States with a mix of Democratic and Republican representatives might not agree. The 2012 election yielded 30 states with a Republican majority House delegation, so Romney probably would have been president under that system. And again, in 2016, Republicans controlled 32 state delegations, so the decision for the House would have been to Trump. Okay? So that is a contingent system. And that is what we have in place today. If there's not a majority of 270 in the Electoral College votes, it falls to the House to set the contingency. So I want to review this with you. And we're probably going to do it again in a couple of different shows. Like, we can look to the John Birch Society, who says, "Save your freedom from a tyranny of the majority. No national popular vote." And I am inclined to agree with the John Birch Society on this topic. The national popular vote would be catastrophic for the United States. We cannot allow it to happen. And now I'm running up on top of the hour. All right. I was going to try to make more time for this, but unfortunately I started ranting, and that's what happens. But I'm going to talk to you directly today. Project Veritas has, through their fantastic reporting, and I give a lot of credit to James O'Keefe on this, uncovered that Facebook has been actively deboosting live videos from conservatives. The evidence is incontrovertible that several prominent conservatives have been deboosted, and that through a new system that is being used to identify trolls, wherein they make references to mainstream media and SJWs, they're being marked as trolls in the Facebook system. So at this point, I have no doubt that I have met at least the anti-trolling criteria. I cannot tell you right now with any type of certainty if the HoloNets broadcasts on Facebook Live have been deboosted. There's no way for me to know. I do not have the legal resources to find out, but I do know that I have used the keywords that they describe. And many other smaller conservative channels have as well. So the time is now upon us. The time is here. We must support the efforts of Louder with Crowder and Mug Club. I strongly advise you, if you haven't checked them out yet, to check them out on louderwithcrowder.com. See if you can join Mug Club, because right now we need to rally behind the highest flag in the battle group, okay? And right now that is Steven Crowder. His banner is the tallest. He is the #1 conservative YouTuber out there. We must unify in his effort to fight back against this social media censorship. And I know what people are going to say, censorship is only when the government does it. Yeah, I get it, okay? But we need to join together. We must join forces with Mug Club. And this is everybody. This is Mojo 50. Mojo 50 fans. This is KLRN Radio. This is Lanterns fans. This is The Blaze fans, Glenn Beck fans, Ben Shapiro fans. Everybody. Gavin McInnes fans that are still out there. People who dig InfoWars, okay? First they came for Alex Jones, now they're coming for you. They're coming for me. They're coming for all of us. You know, I held up my HoloNet coffee mug. I've got a Mug Club mug I think I'm going to start bringing out for the show. I am a member of Mug Club. Mug Club for life. We need to line up and get in lockstep. We cannot let our petty squabbles separate us any longer. I know there's the good-natured rivalry between, you know, the leftist Tears coffee tumbler and the Mug Club members, and Shapiro and Crowder always say that and go back and forth, and it's great fun. But that's what it's got to be limited to. We cannot be hostile toward one another any longer. We have to bridge the divides between us on the conservative side of things. Now all the way to the moderate side of things. Even the more moderate right. We have to stand together, or they're going to pick us off one by one. So, Stephen, the HoloNet stands with you. Mug Club for life. On that note, folks, I've run long on this show. Not the first time, won't be the last. We have a lot to go over, a lot to watch out for. Be vigilant. Good night. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix, I'm Matt Holloway.